All right, let's dive in. We're going to talk about something pretty wild, how a massive, unified empire can just fall apart. And what rises from the ashes? Chaos, castles, and this really strange new way of life called feudalism. So really, how does that happen? How does a whole empire just shatter into 1,000 little warring pieces? That's the story we're going to trace. We'll go from this dream of a unified continent to a place that's completely fractured, where local warlords are the ones in charge, ruling from their stone fortresses. It's really a story about how order completely dissolves and what people desperately try to build to survive. Okay, so before we can get to the collapse, we've got to understand what held this empire together in the first place. And it all comes down to a brand new, powerful idea about what it means to be a king. See, it wasn't just about being the toughest guy on the battlefield anymore. No, it was about being chosen by God himself. And this whole divine right thing, it really kicked off with a super clever political move. You see, the old German kings, they were picked by their nobles. But then this one really powerful guy, Pippin the Short, he wanted to be king of the Franks. And he did something totally new. He didn't just go to the nobles, he went straight to the Pope. And with the Pope's blessing and a little ceremony with some holy oil, bam! Pippin wasn't just a warlord anymore. He was God's chosen ruler. And you have to understand, this was a huge shift in power, an absolute game changer. All of a sudden, disobeying the king, that wasn't just treason, it was a sin against God. The church's support gave kings this kind of spiritual superpower they never had before. And that, well, that set the stage for an even bigger, more powerful king to come along. And that king was Pippin's own son, the most famous figure of the entire early Middle Ages, for sure, Charlemagne. He took this idea of being God's chosen ruler and ran with it, building an empire that Europe hadn't seen since the glory days of Rome. You know, it's so easy to just think of Charlemagne as this larger-than-life warrior king, right? But the man himself was actually pretty fascinating. For one, he was a German-speaking Frank, not French at all, and he was a huge supporter of learning and education in an age when most people, even nobles, couldn't read. He actually loved history so much, he had people read it to him while he ate dinner. And get this, he even tried to learn how to write as an adult. But he never quite got the hang of it. He could only manage to sign his own name. So what was driving this guy? Well, his ambition was crystal clear. He wanted to bring all the Germanic peoples together into one massive Christian empire. That was his mission, and it's what fueled decades of non-stop military campaigns, especially against the pagan Saxons to the northeast. He was absolutely determined to conquer them and convert them. And man, was he successful. He conquered the Lombards in Italy, he pushed the Slavs back in the east, and he even started taking back parts of Spain from the Moors. It all led up to this one incredible, iconic moment, Christmas Day, the year 800. Pope Leo III in Rome places a crown on Charlemagne's head and names him Emperor of the Romans. I mean, can you imagine? For a short, brilliant time, it really looked like the Western Roman Empire was back. But here's the tragic irony. The very empire that was built by the genius of this one incredible man, it turned out to be almost impossible for anyone else to hold together. As soon as Charlemagne died, the unity he had fought so hard for just began to unravel, and it happened shockingly fast. Yeah, Charlemagne's sons and grandsons, they just fought each other constantly over who got what piece of the pie. Eventually, with the Treaty of Mersenne in 870, they just made this split official. They carved up the empire into 3 parts, as you can see on this map here: West Francia, East Francia, and a Kingdom of Italy. The dream of a united empire was officially dead. And the problems went way deeper than just family squabbles. The empire was basically rotting from the inside out. Those amazing Roman roads, they were crumbling, which meant you couldn't move troops around quickly. The kings had almost no money, no gold or silver to speak of. So how do you pay your government officials? You can't pay them in cash. You pay them with land. And that right there is the critical mistake. Because an official you pay with land stops being your employee and starts being his own powerful, independent ruler. So you've got this internal collapse happening, and then on top of all of that, the whole place is getting attacked from literally every single direction. You've got Muslim forces invading from the south, you've got Slavs and Hungarians raiding from the east, and from the north, sailing down the rivers came the most terrifying threat of them all: the Northmen, the Vikings. They would sail their longships right up the rivers and burn and pillage cities deep inland, even Paris. There was just nowhere to hide. danger was everywhere. So think about it. If there's no strong king, no national army to protect you, what do? You need a new way to stay safe. And people found the answer in stone. This is the moment everything changes. This is the dawn of the age of the castle. I mean, if the king's army isn't coming to save your village from a Viking raid, who is? The local guy, the local count, the local landowner. And for him to protect you and himself, he needs a fortress. So all across Europe, these powerful local leaders started building their own private forts, usually on high ground that was easy to defend. They were creating these tiny islands of security in a sea of total chaos. And the defensive technology of these castles was just incredible. Imagine you're trying to attack one. First, you've got to get across a big, deep ditch filled with water, the moat. Let's say you do that. Now you're facing a drawbridge that can be pulled up at a moment's notice. If you get past that, a massive iron gate, the portcullis, can come crashing down and trap you. Literally every single feature was designed to make a direct assault a nightmare. So out of this new reality, a world of local warlords and private castles, a whole new system for society starts to take shape. And here's the key. Nobody planned it. It wasn't designed by some king or committee. It just grew out of necessity. And we call it feudalism. Okay, so what was feudalism really? At its most basic level, it was a deal. You have a powerful lord, right? He's got way more land that he can personally protect or manage, so he grants a chunk of that land, called a fief, to a lesser warrior, a vassal. And in return, the vassal doesn't pay him rent with money, he pays with his loyalty and, crucially, with his sword. He pledges to fight for his lord. And this deal wasn't just some written contract. It was sealed in a really personal, face-to-face ceremony called homage. The vassal would literally kneel down in front of his lord, put his hands between the lord's hands, and declare himself to be the lord's man. Then he'd swear this sacred oath of loyalty on a Bible or a holy relic. It was a powerful physical bond that tied these two men together for life. And it was absolutely a two-way street. The lord had duties and the vassal had duties. The lord's job: grant the land and protect his vassal from attack. And the vassal's job? Well, his whole life was basically defined by his obligations. He had to show up for military service, usually about 40 days a year. He had to attend the lord's court to give advice, and he even had to chip in for special payments, like if his lord got captured and needed to be ransomed. But this system created a huge political problem. Power got completely shattered. Think of it like a pyramid. The king is at the very top. He might have a few big dukes who are his vassals. But those dukes have their own vassals, knights, who serve them. And here's the catch. Those knights owe their loyalty to the duke, not to the king. The king can't just call them up and order them into battle. His real direct power often didn't go much further than his own personal land. So here's the great irony of it all. This whole system, which was born out of a desperate need for protection, actually ended up making war the center of everyday life. The very promises and bonds that were supposed to hold society together became constant excuses for fighting. Seriously, in the feudal world, war wasn't the exception, it was the rule. It was the law of the land. These feudal promises were broken all the time. Lords betrayed their vassals, vassals betrayed their lords, and everybody was just looking for a chance to grab their neighbor's land. For the entire noble class, fighting wasn't just something they did, it was who they were. It was their whole purpose. The violence just got so out of control that the church finally had to step in. They knew they couldn't stop war completely. That was just not going to happen. But they tried to at least limit it with something called the Truce of God. Basically, it was a set of rules. It made fighting illegal from Thursday to Sunday every week, and also during holy seasons like Lent. And if you were a lord and you broke the truce, the punishment was excommunication. You'd be kicked out of the church, which, to them, was a terrifying fate for your immortal soul. And that really leaves us with a final, pretty heavy question, doesn't it? The Truce of God, even with its good intentions, shows you just how bad things were. It wasn't a plan for peace, it was just a plan for a temporary timeout from all the killing. So it makes you wonder, in a world that's built from the ground up on military deals and fortified castles, can peace ever be anything more than just a temporary truce?